Hi, my name is Dr. Ali Donath. I'm going to be discussing some research we did at University of Vermont. We were interested in the 2014-15 West African Ebola outbreak, in which a group called the Social Mobilization Action Consortium trained a whole bunch of community mobilizers to go into communities in Sierra Leone and ask them a whole bunch of questions about kind of how they were managing Ebola and come up with suggestions for kind of how to better control the spread of Ebola. We used the responses given by these communities to try to gauge kind of how well these communities were handling Ebola, and we also were able to gather a whole bunch of information surrounding kind of how well these communities were managing Ebola in the sense of kind of how high was the mortality rate, how high was the safe burial rate, how high was the referral rate. Referral is kind of how often community members are being referred to physicians or being told that there's someone sick here. These were the 6 questions most commonly asked. Our purpose was to examine whether there's some pattern embedded within text data that may be correlated with a given region's response to and handling of Ebola. Outcomes of interest were evaluated as both binary and continuous outcomes. Those were the 3 rates I mentioned: mortality rate, referral rate, and safe burial rate. We used 2 separate text classification strategies. One is the more traditional machine learning-based approach, and then we used a transformer-based approach as well. And we suspect patterns in unstructured free text responses in the trigger period, which is kind of the initial period when community mobilizers reach out to these communities, are predictive of outcomes in the follow-up period. And you can see the dates for those 2 periods. These are the rates over time. You can see safe burial rate is generally improving. Mortality rate is generally improving. Referral rate is generally improving. And we wanted to see kind of what was going on in these specific communities, denoted by their text-based responses in that early period versus the later period, and which of the communities were doing better versus worse, depending on kind of the responses they gave. These are the most common words that were given. This is the mortality rate. We look at the F1 score, AUC. You can see sort of the more traditional approach versus the transformer-based approach. Generally, we're getting pretty good figures for all of these. You can see some of the words that were more associated with improved versus worsened mortality rates. You can see like washing materials and safe burials are associated with lower mortality, and then worse mortality is you see words like sick people and government that may be associated with higher mortality rates. These are some of the limitations we found, and we think this research suggests there may be some predictive value in examining unstructured free text data from publicly accessible data streams gathered from communities confronting a public health crisis. That's it for me. Thank you.